I've already cut about you know how not like Anybody here been to a tree committee meeting before? No. Yeah, they're usually nothing like this. So, be patient with us. Tree committee was established in 1992 when this commission adopted the tree ordinance. The tree committee helps the public services department, develop and implement tree policy. All of you are here because of Consumers Energy permit request for Broadway and Winchell and Fairfax tree removals. How that normally works. Normally I approve the permits because most time consumers just applying to do the work they're allowed to do in the ordinance. And as long as the work is allowed under the ordinance and the letter of the ordinance, then I just approve them without tree committee approval. So this is because it's a reconstruction project and they're asking to do a little more work. It requires the approval of this committee right here. The committee is made up of Environmental Concerns Committee members, Parks and Advisory Board members, Underground Utility Representatives, Overhead Utility Representatives, and Public Services representatives. So these guys, we meet 4 or 5 times a year as needed. We have a schedule. We meet before the Parks and Advisory Board on the first Tuesday of every month as needed. So,
are you Mr. Pryor?
Yes. Okay. Sorry. So that first, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I chair the tree committee and I'm the city's forestry supervisor. All right. What I'd like to do is turn it over to Sam Chancellor right now. He's from Consumers. He applied for the permit, and he can talk about the nature of the work that's going to be done. Okay. Sorry. I will introduce everybody. This is Dave Solberg. He's Consumers Forester locally, and he's been on the board about 10 years. Okay. You want to?
I'm Phil Dietrich from the Environmental Concerns Commission, and this is my first tree committee meeting also. Just got the appointment.
Chris Patchell, Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
Steve Skalski, City Kalamazoo.
Okay, so that's I want to turn it over to Sam Chancellor. consumers to talk about the nature of the work they're going to do on the trees.
Well, like Todd said, my name's Sam Chancellor. I'm a forester with Consumers Energy. I've been with the company since 1992. Had a bachelor's and master's degree in forestry, and I'm a certified arborist. My job specifically with Consumers Energy is I'm responsible for all the line clearing that takes place when we're either building a new or rebuilding an existing, we call it an HVD line, that stands for high voltage distribution. It's our 46,000 volt system. I cover the whole state. So I'm a busy guy, I do a lot of driving. This project right here, we recognized right from the beginning that there's going to be quite a bit of concern because of the neighborhoods that it runs through. So I've been in communication with Todd for the last 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, something like that. We've looked at the trees together. We've rode the area out together. I spoke to a couple of property owners myself and marked the trees that are just related to the city work. We haven't done any marking or further contact with the trees that are on private property, at least the foresters haven't. There's some other activity going out there with our right-of-way department with some field agents. Maybe some of you have had contact with them. That's kind of a separate issue. I think, if I remember right from the trees that I had looked at, let me back up a minute. When my task when we're building one of these lines or rebuilding an existing one is to restore the right-of-way to the greatest extent possible to what it should be to conform with our standard specifications. Our standard specifications for tree clearing on this type of line is to have an area 40 feet either side of the center line cleared of any tall growing tree species, any species that have the capability with a mature height to interfere with the line. So those are the ones that we're really targeting. Outside of that 40-foot area, we do look at additional trees, but it's on a case-by-case basis. If there is a gigantic white pine that's 80 feet tall and it's 50 feet from our center line that's been struck by lightning, we might want to have that one removed so we can protect the line. So that's kind of what my charge is to restore the condition so it conforms with our specifications for a new line. Where was I going next? This particular project, there's a number of trees that is on the city right-of-way that are mostly maple, as I remember, Norway maple, directly underneath the line. And so I talked to Todd about having those trees removed so that they're not repetitively trimmed like they have been in the past, and try and guide the city or the property owners or wherever I talk to towards planting species that are compatible with these overhead lines. And by compatible, I would mean a species that doesn't have that's directly underneath the line, a species that doesn't have a mature height of, say, over 20, 25 feet. And there's a big variety of trees that can be put in those locations, and we love it. In fact, this particular road, Broadway, when I first got a look at it, and I went down through here, I noticed about probably a good half of the road has already had that done. I was ecstatic to see that. I mean, that's what I've been, my whole entire career, been talking to people about, is getting the right species in there. And so there is a good length of that road where there's a lot of low-growing ornamental trees underneath and just adjacent to the line. Those are not targeted for this project. It's the trees that grow tall enough to be repetitively trimmed or a threat to the line if it falls on the line. So that's kind of an overview. Yes, sir.
What exactly is the project that you're going to do? I mean, I want to hear about, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? How are you going to change the lines that are there? That's what I want to know to start with.
Well, I might ask Louis to step in here, but we're rebuilding that whole line with new poles, wires, insulators. I think in some cases the poles are going to be higher, maybe in all. I haven't seen the engineered drawings, but we're reconstructing that line.
Why did you do that? What's the reason?
Why don't you answer that? Explain who you are.
I'm Louis Hinstead. I'm in charge of HPD lines reliability for the west side of the state of Michigan. I'm responsible for reliability of the 138,000 volt and 46,000 volt systems. This line, over the past 5 or 6 years, we've continued to see a decline in reliability, which means we're starting to see more and more outages on it. 2012 was actually one of the worst performing years. We had, I think, 3 outages in 2012. We had another one in 13, another one in 14, another one in 15. So we just keep seeing outages on this line. What this line does, our 46,000 volt system is a little bit different than our typical distribution system. Our distribution system, the low voltage stuff that runs right down every city street, is segmented off partially down the street, or it might carry a block or two. Our 46 system is actually carrying the substations that feed all those areas. So this line feeds 3 substations. When this line goes out, we're knocking out three different substations, each with about 5,000 or 6,000 customers. So basically that whole swath down White's Road, up to Stadium, all in that whole area, we just start knocking that whole area out of power. So as we're seeing this decline in reliability, we're looking at all the different facets of the reliability of it. We're looking at a line that was constructed in the 50s and 60s, had different maintenance on it over the years, and it's roughly hit about its end of life. We're getting to the point of we could probably Band-Aid it for a little bit longer and extend its life. But what we found when doing reliability studies, at this point in time, it's just better to start afresh, knock it all down, and rebuild it all.
Why not put it underground?
Well, underground has...
Technically, that's a better solution, isn't it?
Actually, it isn't.
Why not? Why not?
Well, underground, I'm going to take out all those trees plus more, is really what the answer is going to be. We need to make sure when we're doing an underground line, I'm going to be cutting through, a very large swath of dirt. I'm digging it all out. I'm going to be tearing out roots. I'm going to make sure that there's nothing in there. I've got to make sure then when I'm actually installing underground with 46,000 volt, it's a little bit different than residential wiring here. This is very large stuff. We need to make sure that it is wide open and clear, because lightning strikes can impulse over onto a 46,000 volt line. So if you got a tree that's next to it, or a tall growing species, just like we would with an overhead line, you get lightning in that, it's traveling down the root base, and it can actually charge over into our lines and actually cause underground outages. So we are trying to keep those completely clear through there.
Just a question. You're not. It's 46 kV down.
Yes.
Okay, and so all you're doing is rebuilding. You're not going much higher, or anything like that. So
the voltage is going to remain the same.
Right.
What we're actually going to end up doing is, when we do a system like this, because of we've got also LVD, basically our city circuits through there, we're going to rebuild everything. They're going to be going through every wire that's on that pole, besides anything that's owned by consumers, is going to be cleaned up. We're going to be putting in new wires for the 46, new insulators, poles, our LVD, our low voltage distribution. They're going to be putting all new wires, cross arms, new transformers, basically bringing everything up to a modern day spec as we see it right now.
Why can't you put the poles higher?
We will be going higher.
Why
The
can't
poles,
you take them higher?
the poles will be higher, probably another 10 to 20 feet taller, based on our construction practices right now. They'll be a bit higher, but we're still actually, as you're doing that, the lower voltage wires will still be at the same level, maybe a little bit taller, maybe 10 feet taller. Our construction's a lot different on our newer poles. We did a section, is it White's Road? Right, White's Road there for a quarter of a mile when they rebuilt the stretch of road there. So you'll see those poles look different than the typical poles going down the rest of the way down White's Road.
What's the
They'll look more like
what's
that.
the cross street, White's Road, and
One's
what's
in Oakland, is it? Oakland?
Oakland. Big Parkview there.
Is it?
Yes,
Parkview, exactly.
White's Road in Oakland? There's no-
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name's Al Lamar. We live in the corner of Crossland and Broadway, so we're really effective with it. We have a bunch of specific questions about our property, but I think the main question I have, or more of a comment, is this information, you should have started from the get-go weeks ago with requesting a meeting with the Oakland Drive Winchell Neighborhood Association. This is very helpful information. If you wanted to not generate so much pushback and so much animosity with what you just perceived as a bunch of tree huggers, if you think, if we had all heard this in a letter with the neighborhood association meeting weeks ago, I had no idea that these high voltage lines ran through my yard. And I'm probably not the only naive one here. So for the future, what would be a good idea to be proactive? It's very helpful to have you explain all this. We had no idea. All we see is that you're trying to, use your scorched earth policy and destroy our neighborhood.
Right.
And that's the perception. But if you explain this, and then you can talk about the global plan, why we're not naive. We want electricity, we want lights on, and so forth. But we're intelligent people, and we want to be informed up front, proactively. That's why you didn't do that. That's why you got all these angry people here. So in the future, if you have a proactive approach and just explain in person and also by a letter to all the people that are affected why you're doing this, and then talk about the amelioration of the cosmetics and the impact of taking all these trees out on the environment and CO2 retention from trees and all that sort of thing. You need to talk about that too. But you could have eliminated a lot of this if you had been better at explaining this weeks ago, and we all understand it a little bit better now. Why you can't go underground. We all have the same questions. So in the future, please, please, please be more proactive and respect your intelligent customers.
And I will say we had some mix-ups in that when we typically go under our lines, we actually do send out a letter that we're going to be doing some work in your area.
That's a huge mix-up.
And that's one of the things is that we go through and we talk to all the affected homeowners through there. That was one of the things that as we're going with this project, some parts of it started going ahead of others because we're looking at a project here. There's other facets that we got involved with that we're digging into a little bit more. We've got a brownfield development that we've got to cross right at the end of the line. We've got some railroad tracks that we're crossing. So we started getting those permits and everything started together first. And then we had Sam starting to look at trees, but we had to start getting that conversation started before our typical, we started looking at it and we should have did more of our typical letters out that we're doing stuff, but we started doing a couple of proactive things, and I think that generated more questions than we originally anticipated before a letter went out to all our affected customers.
We didn't have a letter.
Yeah, that's what I said. We haven't sent one out yet, and this is like what typically we send that out about 4 months before we start the project. We're not starting the project out until September, so that's why I say we're
in the whole planning process right now.
Yep.
But my name's Jenny Hetrick, and I understand that many people here didn't get this information. We did get a gentleman that came to our door, a contract employee that came to our door, and I think there was some misinformation as well. In fact, he told us that every tree and all vegetation along the east side of Broadway would be coming down. So you can understand why we would be.
That would be very alarming.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. And part of that is that this line was built in the 50s, in the 60s, where I will say permits were different. Were a different ballgame 50 years ago. A lot of stuff was done under here's a piece of paper, here's a form, fill it out. Okay, it's good. We're not even talking true full easements. We're talking permits that don't end. We're talking very broad form type of permits or some easements. Some stuff was done on handshakes. It's a handshake agreement as you go through. So we were looking at this, and to be honest, we go through, we look at it, we're rebuilding a line. We have Bill pull up our rights through there. Yeah, we have the rights to be exactly where we're at. We're good to be where we're at. Now, when we go through and we look at our standards from 1950 to our standards from now and 50 years of experience with trees, and we start getting more and more people that are informed and very well educated in trees, we need to expand our zones and make it a little more reliable system, especially now from the 50s to now as far as electricity goes. In the 50s, you kind of expected if it was on, it was a great thing. Now, if it's off, it is supposed to be on all the time. If it's off, people get very irate really quick. So we've had to expand those zones and expand those. Well, we start really digging into it, and Bill starts looking at it and talk to Sam. I want to expand it out a little bit to our present-day standards. That's not going to work. We don't have the full rights to do that. So we start sending people out to start looking at buying expanded rights and buying to our full extent that we would typically get on a brand new build. Well, that's where it starts.
That's where it started.
One question with regard to, to the modern day standards. Of those outages that you've been experiencing more of, 3 in 2012 and 1 in, the past few years, how many are due to the trees?
We've actually had 2 or 3 of them were tree related.
I see.
And these are trees that are 30 or 40 feet back, where and I think Sam's got a picture here that he was going to pass around a little bit, where it's 50 some feet off from the center line of the thing.
It's not from this.
It's not from this exact one, but
just an example.
Yeah, you get one where a treetop comes out during one of these storms, the top of the tree's whipping around and it flies right onto our lines.
So the outages that you're experiencing more of in this line that we're all concerned about have not been due to trees?
Yes, they have been tree outages here.
Oh, I see. The photo is just
This is just a general photo of one that he had.
About half of them were due to trees.
Yes, half of them were due to trees.
Yes, sir.
I'm one for people who live on Crest Drive. The power line goes, Crest Drive is parallel to Parkview.
Okay.
We go down Parkview and then it cuts across the lake.
On the one side of the lake, and it's on the hillside there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's, our Crest Drive is probably 20, 30 feet below Parkview.
Yeah.
It's on a steep hill. If the poles are going to be higher, then I wonder how many trees you'd have to cut down. They sort of the impression I got we're going to clear cut down to actually one of your representatives said 47 feet, which would be basically down to the street.
I don't want to do that. I know the area you're talking about, and they might be trying to acquire the rights in there, so we could do things on that whole hillside. But because it drops off like that, and we are high with the poles, my main concern in that area is that zone where we've already topped out all those trees, right in the top part of the hill, and to eliminate or get rid of all the trees right there so we don't have to set up trucks on Parkview. It's such a busy, dangerous road. I want to try and eliminate any trimming or work that we have to do from the top of the hill. But I don't have any intention to come all the way to the bottom of the hill and wipe that whole hillside out. That doesn't make any sense for us. It's too expensive. It's not going to gain us anything. But the top of the hill, where we've already trimmed and knocked all the tops out of those trees, I'd like to get those out because they sprout back. And we're going to have to continually be in there. I'd just as soon have them out so we don't have to set trucks up on the road.
So do you understand why I was concerned? Because somebody told me the opposite.
Now, the guys that are out there that are working on our easement rights, if there's particular tree-related questions where they have difficulty explaining in technical terms what's to happen, they can call on me, and I'm happy to come out and meet with any property owner with them so we can talk about it all, and you can see better what my thoughts are, how I envision work to be done, and I'm a better person to answer those specific questions. They can call on me if they need me. Let me get to this man here because he's been wanting to ask me questions.
I was going to say much of what Al and my wife Jenny said, but regarding your immediate comment there about the contract employee getting to you, just for your information, I have asked the person that came to our door on 2 occasions to give us contact information for someone at Consumers Energy.
Okay.
My request was more along the line to pull together a meeting like this.
Okay.
And I never got a reply. I did get a reply. I never got an answer to the question I posed, which is, who can I contact at Consumers regarding this matter?
About the trees.
Yes.
About the project,
about the whole project.
issue.
Yeah, all of it.
I know a lot of people have a pad of paper. If you want to write down my name for the tree questions, I give you my name and phone number. And about the line design, the scheduling and all that, I suppose you'd be the best person for that, Louis?
Yes.
And so my name is Sam Chancellor.
But I guess, sorry, just not to short circuit you too much, but I think that's what everybody's here for. It'd be nice to have the presentation, show us the map, show us the line, show us the height, show us the trees. I think everybody wants it right, otherwise you're going to get 50 phone calls.
We kind of thought about that, but out of respect out of the tree committee, I wasn't sure how much time they wanted to take away from their business. I mean, this is their business meeting. And I'm real happy to talk about this, and I'm glad that everybody's here, because I would rather talk to as many people as I can at once, in general terms, and then in specifics I can come to your house.
Well, you almost need to go to every house. You almost need to just go to every house on the street.
Yeah, we have been, but we're still kind of in the early stages. And as far as the neighborhood association, I don't, in my job, encounter a lot of neighborhood associations, so I'm a little bit in the dark when I come into a new area I'm not familiar with. Had I known a little bit beforehand, I certainly would have asked to set up a meeting about the trees with your neighborhood association. Yes, sir.
I've been involved in a few projects, mostly governmental projects regarding roads, so I know the process going through and the permits and all that, according to the right of way, et cetera. This project is not going to start until September, you think?
The line construction.
Line construction. So when's your start date, basically, to start in?
Well, I would like to be in there in the summertime to be doing the tree work, July, August.
So, well, now it's May.
Right.
So I think it would be wise for consumers to kind of, excuse my expression, kind of get it together on their meetings. I know Berkey Bio, I think, is still there, isn't he? Dan? Yeah. Well, he's on the road commission. He knows how to handle meetings and how to set up and get things organized. So I don't know whether consumers, I think, should kind of get some plans together, send out notices to all those affected. You have time. And to get everybody in there, and then to go through the route, because you're not going to get everybody's questions answered today. There's going to be more that pop up. And just take it as a project that's going to involve a lot more than what you normally do to get these answers, and maybe have a meeting in 3 weeks or whenever, when you have more information, when the neighbor is going to get some more questions, and take it from there before your start date. Because otherwise, if we could go on for probably 2 hours here, question.
Is there just one neighborhood association, or is there two, or how many?
Pretty much one.
There's three.
I live in West Winchell, so.
Let me kind of jump in here. I know many of you here in the audience. My name is Diana Morton Thompson, and I'm the treasurer of the Oakland Drive Winchell Neighborhood Association. I'm also liaison with our neighborhood to our sister neighborhood, the Oakwood, and also now liaisoning with the Northside neighborhood. So it's very simple. All you have to do is Google Winchell neighborhood. You would come to our website, which is up to date. It's called winchellneighborhood.org. Many of you are probably receiving your monthly e-news and saw the notice that you recently received about this meeting. So we do have a good communication system. As you probably know, we have about 1,600 single-family homes in our neighborhood, and we do send out the e-news to hundreds of those homes. So please do give us the information. As the gentleman in the back pointed out, we want data. We want plans, we want maps, we want specifications. We'd like to know why you're choosing this course of action versus other alternatives. Saying that, we can't, put it underground because of insulation, I guess my question is, why not? What are the specifications that would be required for the proper insulation? What do your meteorological studies show is going to be happening over the next 10, 20, 30 years in terms of the longevity of these lines and what's going to be happening as we continue to have more horizontal force winds? I know it all costs money, but it's all going to cost money sooner or later. And maybe this is a good time for us all just to sit back and think, what are we doing now and what is going to be happening 10 years, 15 years down the road, because all of this is going to have a dramatic impact on people's property values, much less the environment.
How often do you have your association meetings?
The board meets the first Wednesday of the month, which happens to be tomorrow. We have monthly meetings, which are already pre-scheduled out, which are the third Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Social time kind of starts about 6:30. They're in the Winchell Elementary School. If you would like to be on the agenda for next fall, I'm sure that can be arranged because we're starting that agenda now. But I just kind of wanted to read this because we've been getting lots of feedback from people in the neighborhood who are saying things like, wow, they're going to come cut down all our trees. Or I had this strange man come to my door. He wants to force me to sell my property rights. He says I must sell my property rights to them. I feel intimidated. These are the kinds of stories that are coming back to us on the board. And I find it interesting when I go to Consumer Power's website, and it talks about our environment, the corporate environmental policy, and I quote, "The life of any business cannot be separated from its impact on the natural environment in which it operates. All employees, including senior management, take seriously our role in protecting and enhancing the environment and its interaction with energy needs, the economic well-being and the quality of life of all the communities in which we operate and serve. Wherever we do business, our activities will be consistent with sound environmental practices. And therefore we manage our business according to the following principles." And number 2, right after under complying with environmental laws, is understand and reduce, where practical, the environmental impacts of our activities and demonstrate that understanding and planning and execution of our work. So I think we're looking for a little bit more data to see the engineering studies and the various feasibility analysis, of why you're taking this course of action.
Thank you.
Dick Wheeler, I live on Broadway and Acorn Wing. And I think the message that we're trying to give you guys is that business as usual ain't going to sell on Broadway in our community right now. We've tried to be very professional in taking steps, making contacts before this meeting. Mr. Hector did got responses back. He sent me a copy of the response. I said, the gentleman that you contacted ducked your request, which he did. This lady here reads a nice comment about consumer policy. I've got Mr. John Russell's, your president's statement here that's on your website. It doesn't speak to the steps that you folks have taken thus far in trying to, approach our community to get done what you want to do. I think what we're saying is we understand that you gentlemen have a job to do every day, but we're looking to elevate this up at this moment to have those who you work for get a chance to hear us. And this is what I think Mr. Hector is asking for in this meeting. I think this group would also like to address the city of Kalamazoo and say that we don't want your approval on this project. We want it deferred, delayed, put off until we become more aware of what the project really is and what the options are for our neighborhood involved. And Louis, you made a statement here that says we have the right to be where we're at right now. What does that mean to this group here, to that statement?
Well, the line was installed under permits from 50 years ago. The line is where it's at. It is legally situated where it's at. It's really, we have the right to be there. We have the right to trim to our normal trimming standards that we've used on that line, which is our trimming standards versus our new construction standards are a little bit different. When we go back through and we're trimming lines, we're basically cleaning up what we have out there. We take out the trees also that are get to the point of maturity where they're starting to die off, or we've trimmed them so much that basically the next trim is actually going to kill them. So we go out there and we actually start cleaning up those. But we don't have rights to go out in some of those segments we do, some of those segments we don't, to go out through and do an expansion. We're going to make it taller. We're going to have to move it over a foot because they've installed a different water main now or a different fiber optic line. We have the rights to be exactly where we're at. So where we were expanding to get new rights and to make sure that we have to go back through and get a new road permit to go through and put these poles in the road again. So we have to go through and redo those. But as the line sits right now, it is perfectly legal and perfectly permitted where it's at.
So right now, your existing right-of-way is 66 foot, which is 33 feet off the center line. That's where you have the right to be right now, am I correct?
Correct.
And the easement that you are requesting property owners to sign would be a total, you're looking for a total of 103 foot off the center line, is that correct?
Bill, you want to take
Yes, that would be. And what that is.
I got one more question I want to put on that.
Okay.
This project that you're talking about, this is one of the things, we don't have enough information. The way this was handled is pretty hackneyed. Can you do this line in the existing right-of-way where you have the right to be right now? Can you do this line and make it work, yes or no?
What do you mean, rebuild it where it's at?
Yeah, can you make it work within your existing right-of-way without getting any of the easements? Is the easements, that's what you'd prefer to have that. But right now, within your 66 foot right-of-way, can you make this project work? Upgrade
Yeah,
this?
we can rebuild it there, but the easements that we're trying to acquire out there are for trees, for situations with trees, where that's not, because of the way it was installed with the permits, it's not defined as much as we'd like it. And so if a person plants a Colorado blue spruce in their yard and it's outside the road right away, it's a negotiation all the time on what we can do with that tree as it matures.
But asking people to sign away their property rights with the way you've gone about this for 103 feet, which is in people's backyard, that is why.
Yeah,
that is why why you guys are under fire right now.
Yeah, but we have heard that part.
There's been a little
come back to us.
subterfuge.
Yeah, that's come back to us from our field agents. And we've had some pretty serious internal discussions about that, about what we're asking for.
Yeah, but you haven't brought it back on us. We
Not
don't
yet.
know what you guys are doing.
Actually,
Not yet.
we had meetings. I'm in charge of the right of way. Okay. We had meetings yesterday with concerns. We're hearing you. Okay. We apologize. We did screw this one up. Okay.
You had a public meeting about the right-of-way yesterday?
No.
No,
No, we were meeting in our own.
We had internal meetings.
They don't need a.
What we did is we listened to you. We listened to what the problems were, what the concerns were. This is a very unusual case. We don't run into situations where we're in a neighborhood like this. A lot of these lines don't get this far. Okay? We should have done these proactive things. And for that, I apologize that we did not, as a company, do that. We will try to amend that by meeting with you. Okay? Now, as far as the rights are concerned, we had a long conversation with the people that are in charge of the standards for our tree clearing. Sam and I both went and discussed these rights with them, and essentially what we've agreed to is half of what we were originally asking for. We understand the trees that are out there. I knew it was going to be a problem. I was told to just go with our standards. Well, it was my fault for not questioning it right away. That's entirely my fault. I should have pushed it a little bit harder, but I didn't. Yes?
Why can't you, if you're going to go through all this work to replace these, why don't you just find a different path that isn't invasive to the neighborhood to run these lines over to Stadium Drive and wherever they have to go from there? There's more commercial areas available. Again, that's why we're here. We want to investigate those kinds of
it's
things.
easier.
And then one other point, and then on your point about the height of the trees.
That's the only place to put it.
I think that
It's going to go through residential no matter where. If you think whether your sub is on by D&W, is that
the right past it?
where's your sub you're running from?
Well, there's one right down here. We call it Oakland sub right
Oakland
down here.
sub is right over there.
So, I
don't know what exactly that is.
Regardless of where they're going to run, they're going to run through a neighborhood. So, I mean, I'm not in defense of them, but I'm just saying that the poles are there, the line is there, so it's going to be the only place where basically where you can run efficiently.
And that's what it boils down to a lot of the times. It's going to go through some neighborhood.
Yeah.
It's been in this neighborhood for 50 to 60 years. It's basically going right back through there. You look at it, we're going to have to go through someplace. And
Why can't you guys consider, like John was saying, you have it right away right now. Why can't you do your reconstruction within that? Why do you need to encroach on people? And you say the trees, well, I don't know that there are many trees that, if you take more land from the landowners, land that doesn't have trees on it right now that are going to cause a problem, then you're concerned, as I heard you would say, that, well, if somebody put a tree in, it's going to grow up 80 feet might be a problem.
Right.
Well, I think the people in this room would come to understand that, and if they wanted to put a tree in, if you identify the types of tree that could be put in, and I think everybody would be willing to do that, but don't have to do that and give up another 60, 70 feet of their property.
Yeah, we're not going to ask for that much. Like Bill said, we recognize when we go out and we get our standard rights, it's 40 feet of the cleared area and then an additional 40 feet for danger tree rights. And that's where we started on this one, and we shouldn't have, because it makes no sense whatsoever in these yards. It doesn't. So Bill and I, when he started really getting some of his field agents coming back to us and saying, hey, these property owners are not buying this, we started talking about it. And we asked for a meeting with the senior management in forestry to determine what we can do in here that's different from what our standard is. And so we got them to agree to about half of what we needed in there. And so they're going to, I don't know if any of that's been communicated to the field guys yet or not, but we listened and heard that, and it makes sense. And, I'm glad that we're having this meeting, and I'm glad people are talking back to us, because it does allow us to adjust our practices. Now, as far as the trees, why do we need to go back so far on some of it? And I did bring along a picture of a tree. I carried this around with me everywhere so I could talk to people. But this was a silver maple in a yard. It was 55 feet from the center line. Not on this particular line. It was on a different line where it came down, caused an outage. But a lot of people will ask me, well, why do you have to go so far back? And this is why. Certain species really cause us problems. And if we don't have the ability to address the problems through good easements that we're both aware of, that we know what our rights are, and you know what your rights are, these are really difficult situations. And so that's what we're trying to do, is have the necessary tree rights to be able to take care of the species that are problems for us. Just a minute, I'll go to him in the back.
On Oakland, between Parkview and Howard, you put in a new line that's much higher, that's kind of squared off at the top. You didn't take out hardly any trees underneath that. So how is this project different from that project that just took place?
It might have been a distribution line. I don't know. Do you know about that?
That's a distribution line. It's a different voltage. It's 4,800 volts, and that line is it's a different type of conductor. It's called Hendrix cable or aerial spacer cable, where it is a tighter bundle, so that we do less tree trimming. That's essentially what it is. It just helps prevent outages for that reason.
Is it the same voltage that you're talking about?
No. The standards of clearance for 46 versus distribution are much, much different. For distribution, our standard of clearance, we're working in a 30-foot corridor. In other words, 15 feet either side of the center line is where we really concentrate on trying to remove those trees that are tall growing ones. With a 46,000 volt line, it says 40 foot, so it's quite a bit different. And because the reason is because it affects so many more people. It's so much more critical, and it's potentially more hazardous. So it's the same with if you look in the countryside, the big power lines on the big steel towers. They can't tolerate anything on that, so there's a great big right away. I mean, that's, ITC on that is, I'm clearing on those 200 feet wide.
I have two questions. When you say the 40 feet from the center line, you mean where the line of the power line
The
is?
poles.
Oh,
Yep.
the pole, okay.
Where this pole is, that's the center
To
line.
follow up to your picture, I've been looking at our street a lot the last couple of weeks with this in mind, and there's some huge oak trees on the west side of the street, and they look. My just projection looking at the lines is they pose a much larger risk.
Right. Yep. Some of those I'd like to address. We haven't quite got there yet. I haven't looked at them as thoroughly as where on the side of the road where the line actually is.
Yeah, but I mean, they pose the same hazard, and the only major outage where that line went down was from an oak tree that fell from the west side of the street onto the line 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, you're focusing on that east side of the street, and I look at all these huge oak trees on the west side of the street, and it looks like they pose a greater hazard.
It's definitely something that I'm going to be looking at because I've noticed those too, especially the ones that are leaning. I don't know how far back from the pole line that those are, but the street is probably 35 feet wide, and then we're probably into the yard side. It's maybe 40 feet or beyond. So it kind of most of those that would fall in that kind of danger tree category that I spoke about earlier. But I do need to look at those to make sure that there's not something in there that's going to get us. The ones that are on your side of the street, whoever lives on there, that I'm concerned about are there's some spruces. I don't even remember a whole lot of trees, but there's some spruces, there's some white pine, there's a big soft maple in there in a particular yard, and then the trees that Todd and I looked at that are directly underneath the line. So,
is anybody here that has some of these big trees that are directly under the line that they want to talk about?
There's some that I put a blue X on that were in the city right away. I did that for Todd.
I live on Crossman. There's 2 that are directly underneath it. You guys want to take them down? I'm more than happy with them. They're nasty.
Yeah,
they're
but
half
a
dead
couple
anyway.
people. I did talk to one property owner. I don't know if she's here or not. I don't think so, but she said, "Please take these trees down." Great. It's good to have that kind of cooperation.
So like at 2503 Broadway, is anybody here that lives at 2503 Broadway? Or 2407 Broadway?
There's 12 trees that have X's on them in the 2 blocks, and there's 8 trees that have dots on them. What's the dot mean?
My neighbor is 25, excuse me, I'm sorry. My neighbor is 2503. And I spoke to her yesterday. So
I spoke to her on the phone too.
Okay, yeah, she called me.
Yeah.
She's wanted to have those trees down for years. So you're talking about those 2 trees, those maple trees in her front yard.
And this is what the permit, is about, and this is what we're here to talk about, for the tree committee, is those trees. There's a tall maturing trees that are under these wires that consumers repeatedly comes through and every time they get a little decent again, consumers kind of goes through there and beats them out. And I'm curious to know what the people that live right where those trees are, because that's what this permit request is about. It's about, there's 31 trees that are right under the wires.
So my big concern is the stump removal of those. I mean, we're talking about, we've had our trees removed at our cost, stumps removed, lawn replaced, again, at our cost. There are no trees out there right now, but everyone is not going to do that. And that, to me, is a quality of life issue. When you drive down Broadway and you see house after house with stump after stump after stump, and the wood that has been left in addition to it, it's an eyesore, and it's a concern. I just think that needs to be addressed.
The cutting that you referenced, that you saw, they did come through. That was last year. I don't remember what month. But the clean. I mean, I don't know what the rules or what regulations you guys are under, what your responsibility is on that. But what was left, it was abysmal. Yeah, I went over to this. Property owners weren't able to handle it themselves. Me and my boys had to haul 3 truckloads. It was just it was haphazard all over their yard and in the side lot. So I mean,
We don't want that.
well, and that was throughout the whole neighborhood. I think anybody along my stretch would agree it was not very professional. I don't know what, maybe that is within the realm of what the law allows for you, but.
I can address that a little bit because that, when consumers come through on routine maintenance, they're allowed on primary wires 7 feet of clearance, and I approve those permits. And as I go through approving those permits, if I see dead trees or ash trees infested with ash borer, or trees that they're going to leave you with a little totem pole, when I make them go to 7 feet and leave that, then I'll talk to those homeowners and say, look, you can picture what's going to be left of your tree, or I'll tell them your tree's dead, and then I make consumers cut those trees down. But when I do that, I make then we come and get the wood and we come and grind the stumps. With the staffing we have, stump grinding is kind of a rainy day activity for the city right now. So some of that, I understand it looks like it's just consumers, but it's kind of consumers working with us and us making them do more work associated with their trimming.
Well, we took care of it, so.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
What's the blue dot mean?
A dot is trimming. A dot is trimming, and I think the dots, I didn't mark anything with dots. That might have been some of the age work that was done on the distribution.
The dots are from the plan last year.
Yeah, unfortunately, it sounded to me like, as I was learning about this area, that there was some distribution maintenance work that went on within the last year. And so that probably is confusing some people. This is a construction project, and it's got nothing to do with the maintenance work they did last year. That was just coincidental that happened.
Getting back to Mr. Hetrick's question, who amongst you folks are going to see that he gets an answer to his request here? And I think that the group would like to maybe recommend that we end up having 3 or 4 neighbors maybe take on the task of getting a bullet point sheet of our questions that could be presented, and on the other side, we're looking for a site plan to be presented to us, telling us what you're going to do on each block. And if you're going to want more property, and you say you would replace vegetation by homeowner, we want to know what vegetation has got to come out, what's going to be replaced. We talk about stump removal. We've got stumps that are in our neighborhood right now. It's been 6 or 8 months. They've been sitting there, and some neighbors just went ahead and, like the Hetricks, and had theirs taken out.
And one step further, Todd, I think I'm probably speaking for the group that our expectation that the city of Kalamazoo not issue a permit to Consumers Energy to do this work until we have the meeting and the understanding that we've all been talking about today. Just like Dr. LaRue said, much of this could have been avoided a month or 2 ago had we had some proactive contact from Consumers Energy. But our expectation from the city is that no permit be granted for this work to commence until we have a better understanding and an understanding with consumers as to what's going to occur.
Well said.
I would like to include other neighborhoods in that same request.
Yeah.
I live in the West
End.
End.
Is anybody here from Fairfax and Whitcomb? Because I need to touch base with that neighbor association too, because I dropped the bond and didn't get a hold of them yet.
Todd, let me understand specifically about the stump removal thing, because we have a very unsightly stump right in front of our yard where you had your truck today when we were talking. The city should come and grind that stump and restore the landscape, is that correct?
Correct.
You'll let us know after the meeting how we get that done.
No, it's just going to automatically happen. Yeah, but it's like I said, that's a function that we do. Right now we're dealing with dangerous trees, and so when we get a high ranger that's broke down, because the same guys that are doing our hazardous tree removal are also doing stump grinding. So
this has been 6 months.
Yeah.
You're supposed to look for them on a rainy day.
Something broke down or it's too rainy tomorrow.
I think with what this gentleman was saying back here, maybe you could jump in if you think I'm wrong, but I don't see there being a problem table this request until we can answer these folks' questions a little bit more, so you're not feeling like you need to make a decision today.
Yeah, that'd be wise.
Thank you.
And in
That would be wise.
addition, we weren't able to get, I don't believe we got your full name, but we weren't able to get phone numbers, if we could still go back
Sure.
to that too.
Yep.
If you just write your, in big print on the whiteboard.
Sure.
There, your contact information for all three of you, that would be helpful.
Okay.
And we have been working with the city engineer's office to get our permits and our road closures and lane closures and stuff. And this was actually, a couple of the engineers were on vacation, and they've had some turnover recently in there. And this was actually one of the things that we were going to be doing, was actually setting up a public meeting through there. But with all the turnover, they were kind of talking maybe towards the end of May is when we were going to be doing that. So we were kind of letting things settle down through there. They've actually got a copy of our plans right now, just an overview, a plan view of what we're doing. So they could start looking at it and digesting what's going to need to happen on the city permit end. And that's when we were actually kind of getting ready to get stuff together. Like I said, some of these other ancillary things have kind of preempted my normal process of going through and doing some of the conversations. So it is, like I said, we had some miscommunications internally. We're working on those, and we'll plan on different kinds of meetings. I don't know exactly what we're going to do quite yet. It's this one, like we said, it's a little bit different. So it might just not be something that we're going to do with the board, with the city there. So we will see what we're going to be doing, but we can definitely set up meetings for different locations and to go through what exactly we looked at as far as outages and numbers and why we're doing what we're doing.
Is there anybody in particular
if someone does not sell you an extra easement, what will you do?
It's your property. You can sign it, or you cannot sign it. That's totally your right to not sign it.
But we've heard eminent domain passed around.
Not from my people. Ever. We do have that right, but we do not.
You don't use it anymore.
No, we don't.
Yeah, we negotiate. But what I'm saying is you won't hear that from anybody that works with me or anybody within this company except our attorneys. We do not and will not use eminent domain on this one. There's no reason for it. It's trees, okay? If you don't sign the easement, you don't sign the easement. But what we're here to do is to make sure that you guys have safe, reliable electricity. And not just your group. We're talking 15,000 people that are fed off of these lines. Okay, and as far as the meeting goes, there's a bunch of people in here, and I don't know who we need to get with. I don't want to have to get with each one of you individually, because that just is a lot of work. If I can get together with a few people that would be representatives and tell me how I get to you all to set something up, that would be wonderful.
I think Gary, that's
you would be
doing a
wonderful.
great job.
One neighbor.
He's retired.
So, the line that is running across Woods Lake, is that part of it?
Yes.
So will that be clear cut down the hill where that line?
Where it comes down the hill, that has to be cleared out, yes. Yeah. That's one of the probably more difficult spots. Right there on the south side of that lake, it's so confined. And talking to the electric construction field leader, there's a great big oak tree down there, and it's not seeing how we could possibly.
Next door to us.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's so confined to try and get in there to do that work. I don't know how we can get in there with that tree being there. One of the problems we have is there's distribution underbuilt on the 46 line, and that's going to have to be energized. I think you're going to take an outage on the 46, aren't you?
We're going to take an outage on the 46.
But the distribution underbuilt has to stay energized, and when they do that, they have to extend it out on fiberglass arms so they can get the poles up in between and do all. And these trees that have been beat out like this or side trimmed, it puts it right into those trees when we extend it on those arms. And so we got to cut even more. And so a lot of these trees, that's, I guess, a secondary reason why I'm asking to try and get some of them out. It's just so it can be done feasibly. I mean,
Destroys the.
right,
You know what it does?
it destroys the trees, and I hate doing
it.
it.
It hurts the value.
Oh, yeah.
And they cut up through the road.
I hate doing it. I don't like to disfigure these trees, but I want you to keep in mind on those parcels that are south of the school down there, what was done years ago with the planting of the ornamentals that are in there. There's a lot of the property value is retained in those areas by having the right species, and so this road could be a terrific example. You know, I'd actually like to, if we could get it done correctly and over time. It'd be a great thing for us to use as a template for how you do things the right way.
So Sam, how wide of a swath coming down from Parkview down to Crest down to the lake? I mean, how wide does that have to be clear cut?
Well, my charge is to try and get everything out removed within 40 feet of the center line.
So 80 feet wide total?
Right.
Okay.
Well, wait a minute, but that's your charge, which you'd like to do.
As much as possible.
Now, do you have an urban, system or specifications that you use? I mean, you're coming in, I know you like to clear cut in, out, in the countryside, but you're coming into an urban neighborhood, and there's amenities there, the trees that these folks have purchased their homes, and so I want to make sure that it's just a specification that you have, and it's a light that you would have from Consumers Energy.
Well, but it's a specification that's been developed over years and years
Understood.
of practice, and that's the area where the outages are. So that's why we clear back that far and not 45 feet.
And we're looking
not
at
30.
we're looking at a reliability there.
Right.
The wind and the snow is not any different in the city or the country. It's all the same. So from a reliability
But
perspective,
that line,
we need
it's
to
not
open
like
it
you're
up.
putting in a new line. And you're not doing anything different except replacing it. So, those folks want to keep the trees.
Right.
You
Yeah,
guys-
I know.
And I guess the question I have, staff, is is the permit one, so if you give them a permit, then they can go in on any property within a given area, or is it property by property?
The permit that I'm issuing is for the right of way, and that's what we're concerned with, what we have authority over is the city road trees.
For the road, correct?
This is the road right here. It's like 30.
Doesn't have anything to do with our personal easements, which we have through that area.
And just for clarification, the permit we're discussing today on tree committee involves 31 trees. That's
But
beyond the
Down
right of way,
Parkview
beyond
part of
that.
that?
Let's see the map.
We will stay on.
And there are no, and this might change, that's another, because there are no tree removals listed on the top of that.
No, I didn't go through and walk on that side hill up area, the wooded area. I concentrated more on the landscape type trees rather than.
Plenty more than 31 trees.
Yeah, if you include that, yep. But I was looking at the road right-of-way trees in between the sidewalk and the road, or right next to the road on Broadway. Those seem.
Don't forget about us on Crest.
Yeah.
Lots of us here to
Jerome,
trust.
to your question, the ordinance allows them on transmission line 10 to 14 feet of clearance, sideways. So if they were asking me to trim back to 14 feet, then I would just approve that without the meeting, without talking. And that was what was done last year.
That's not taking out tree, is that trimming then?
That's trimming.
Okay,
Yeah.
trimming, I understand.
And that's
Yes, that's
right. So what we're talking about here is what's left after the maintenance is done, which is kind of a good thing on this survey. You can kind of see what the maintenance does because it was just done. If we're 7 years after maintenance cycle looking at trees, it's a lot different. You get the opportunity to see what it looks like when they get done maintenance and the trees they're trying to cut down. What they look like every 7 years, and that's what I'm interested in is the people who live in front of those, behind those trees. How do they feel about that stretch of Broadway where consumers came in and planted the pears and so for anybody who's not aware of the history, the transmission maintenance crew came in and started down Broadway without a permit 15 to 17 years ago, and the pin oaks, they're on the other side of the street, and used to line that side of the street, and so they just decimated them, and we stopped them when they got close to the school, and then they proceeded, with their permit and conform with the ordinance. But in the process of the next couple months, you know, the process that we're going through right now, you know, was vetted and developed, you know, it had already been there, but it was reaffirmed. So that's why we're having this conversation we're having today. And what ended up happening was consumers came back at their expense and removed those pin oaks where the residents would let them and replanted with trees that are appropriate for, you know, are sustainable under the wires. And right now, so that's, you know, a lot of those plantings are 15 years old, and they're pretty nice trees now. And so you get opportunity to see that too in your neighborhood. And I think, you know, if you've walked it, you've probably seen it. So, but this extends over, you know, up Wickham and Fairfax and South Park too. So, and I think we need more of those people involved too. So I think, what's your timeline on starting the tree work?
Well, it's a little uncertain right now. You know, like I said, if the construction schedule stays on the timeline that we'd like, in other words, in September or October doing line construction, then I need to be in there July, August, trying to get the tree conditions taken care of. Now, I can probably avoid doing trees that are not absolutely necessary to build the line, but we want to do all the trees associated with the project all at once rather than some here and then come back in a few months and then some next year. I'm trying to get everything all together as one package and then move through the neighborhood and be out.
I don't think I've heard it addressed. You've talked about clearing trees. You've talked about how it would be great to have ornamental trees. It's been discussed about planting trees that'll top out at an acceptable height. What I haven't heard addressed is what is consumers' responsibility and or policy on doing that work themselves. I mean, you are cutting down trees in people's property. Is it their responsibility? Is it something you'd like to see them do? Is it something that you send a crew out right behind to grind up stumps and plant the proper trees underneath these things? I mean, I think people do understand that you've got to expand and make the grid better. But just walking away and going, our job's done, that's what I'm hearing. But I don't know what, maybe I'm hearing it wrong.
Well, with the easements that we're trying to acquire out there, you know, there's financial compensation for that, and it depends on the parcel and what we need to do. But that's partly what that's for, is so that there's monies that the property owners receive that they can get tree planting done. Consumers Energy does not plant trees. Almost, you know, pretty rare cases. With the city, even with the city, they want trees planted back when the trees are removed. Now we have a community grant program that is funded. I don't know the amount, but every year communities can apply for it and receive a grant to plant, you know, so many trees. They put it in an application, and I'm sure the city of Kalamazoo would be pretty highly considered to receive a grant program when that occurs this year. I don't know what the status of that is, but as far as planting trees for everyone that we remove as a matter of our standards, we do not do that.
And where you already have easements, which you already have quite a few easements, I understand, you have no responsibility on that land. You can just
what we do,
grind the stumps.
Yep, where we have easements, what our practice is when we're doing our maintenance work, and even where the easements are applicable for new construction, in a maintained area like a residential area, we will cut the trees and limbs, cut the trees down, and grind up all the branches that we can run through the chipper, haul that away, rake up the yard, cut the wood into variable sized pieces, pile that right there by where the tree was, and cut the stump as low to the ground as practical. We don't remove stumps as part of our standard practices. Now,
that's a problem.
With construction, that's our regular maintenance.
You don't remove the trees either, correct?
You'll grind up the branches, but
the large wood. No, I don't. And the reason for that is, and I'm not saying this applies to everybody, but the reason is a lot of people have use for it or know somebody that has use for it, and sometimes it has a value to it as firewood.
Sometimes.
People make that claim.
Sometimes it doesn't.
But what I'm saying is, as soon as I tell a crew, go take that wood, within a couple of weeks, I've got a new guy that wasn't on the job before, and you get new people in, they start getting their buddies to come haul it, and next thing you know, I've got a complaint that we've stolen wood, and we're thieves.
That would be an easy case-by-case situation.
Yeah, I have helped people get rid of wood before, and fortunately, with a number of people that have got these outdoor wood boilers, maybe not in town, but out in the country, they follow us around like hawks. And they're right behind us all the time. And so I can't give your wood away. But if you don't want it, I can tell these people, this property owner doesn't want their wood. Go ask them if you can have it. And we try and guide people, put people together so the wood can be.
The easement rights only allow us.
It's a communication issue. Like I had trees cleared in my undeveloped property. I didn't have a problem with any of that. But then it's just there. I mean, how hard is it to got a bunch of trees? Right. Do you want these here? Do you want us to leave the wood? I mean, I'm not here to complain about that. I'm just saying I've walked through that neighborhood. The gentleman just left. You've got trees that are, they're 3 feet around. And it's the communication or lack thereof that I think that's really grinding people's gears here today.
I still have a concern that you're coming in and you're going to take down a tree and you're not going to take out the stump. You're just going to try to get it as low as you can. And I just want to finish. It seems to me you got to try to make folks whole. So if you come in, you need to at least do the restoration.
Right.
I mean, come in, get that stump out, get the restoration. I think when you come back and talk to the neighborhood, you ought to go back to Jackson and figure that out and see if you can come back with something, because that'll go.
Well, fortunately, with my work, I have a little bit more flexibility with the construction side than they do on the maintenance. So I can do a bit more stump grinding and that kind of thing, and wood hauling with the construction.
Todd, will the city take care of the stump grinding?
Not on this. This is kind of a different thing. What I was talking about, where we take care of stump grinding, where Dave wants to trim a dead tree and I make him cut it down as part of his permit. Well, I'll take care of the stump because he's doing extra work for us.
Yeah, I will say this. For these city trees, the property owner is not going to be bearing an expense for grinding stumps and putting in dirt and seed. That'll be taken care of. The portions where we're not in the city right of way, where we're on private property, that's what Bill's field agents are kind of trying to work out in the negotiations with this whole easement process. Sometimes people want us to do it, and I'll do it when it's written up in the agreement. Sometimes they'll take care of it. We'll put a price on that and give you the money to do that yourself. It just kind of depends on how that negotiation takes place. So, but to answer your question earlier, with these city trees, if there's a stump there, you're not going to be responsible for an expense for the stump on these city trees. Where there's an easement, new easement, then that'll have to be negotiated.
I think, I don't want to belabor this issue, but I also know that rainy day statement is true. And we're talking, I'm sure, sometimes far more than 6 months or 8 months. I mean, I think we could have easily waited 2 years and longer to get those stumps removed. And it's just unacceptable.
No, that won't happen. Because if I know about it beforehand, I can put it, when I prepare my bid package for the contractors, I can put it right in the bid.
You're talking about the easement area, though, not the city area. Is that correct? The right of way. You're talking about both.
Yeah, if I know I got to grind stumps before my contractors are selected, I can include that as part of my specifications for my bid, and then they give me a price for it as part of the package.
Who do you use? Do you use Asplin or Davey?
There's about 8 different contractors that I invite to my bids. And lately it seems like 2 of them have been quite active. Integrity Tree Service out of Granville and Asplin.
Asplin's great.
Yeah, but our maintenance work, we have general contracts to do, because our maintenance work is far in excess of what our construction work. I mean, we have a lot of activity on our maintenance work. But our general contracts are with Trees Incorporated, Asplin, and I think Davey.
Then, would you have a project manager on site? Because these folks are coming in, they don't, you know, they might just start cutting something down there.
There'll be a general foreman for the contractor that'll be on site almost always, and then I'm overseeing the whole thing, but not daily. I mean, in and out periodically.
The foreman is from Consumers, or the foreman is from Asplin or
Be from
Livermore?
Asplin.
Well, and
They would
I
have
usually
general foreman.
keep a fairly close eye, you know, when they're, and I haven't worked with Sam a lot, but when I work with Dave, I can stop their crews until I, you know, while I call Dave or, you know.
And also there's a very clear work plan that the crews have. And there's the trees are painted, the next for removal, the dot for a trim. So it's.
Yes.
It's pretty.
I just want to make sure I got this. So you've got a large construction project here, and you need permits from the city to take some actions on the city right away.
Right.
But then you also need to have additional contracts signed with individual property owners to purchase the easement rights, to expand out your easement onto the land that they own. And so here's my question. What if one of these property owners decides that they don't want to sell you this easement, then the project goes away, and yet you've already got some work already done on city property? Or like what is the plan B?
We'll build the line as best we can. If I can't get tree rights, let's say you've got a property and you've got a white pine tree planted 30 feet from the center line, and it's 60 feet tall, and it's got a split top in it, and I want to remove the tree. And I don't have, there's not a written easement that allows me to do that. And so if we are negotiating with you to purchase additional easement rights so I can get that tree out, and you don't want to sell, there's nothing I can do. I mean, we just kind of end up taking our chances and cross our fingers.
You will not go to court?
No.
No.
Absolutely not. Now,
No, that's
said, you guys
we
own,
don't like that.
you own the property. You have the right to say no. Okay. What our job is to talk with you, try to explain the project. Obviously, it wasn't explained as well as I would have liked it. And negotiate with you as landowners on the trees to acquire what we can.
Okay, just one other comment. For those of you in the room who don't know or just talked to him on the phone, the guy in the gold shirt, that's Pete Kushner, and he's the president of the Neighborhood Association, and he's the one responsible for the monthly e-news. So there are plenty of people here that can help get the word out and help you with your concerns.
In some areas, we've got easements that were somebody acquired those years and years ago. And when we're planning these projects, we always review what we've got and what we don't, where we need to define them or improve them, and then we'll try and do that if we can. And that's what the situation is with some of the parcels on Broadway. I don't know how many, but there's some there and some other areas.
So I'm going to cut off questions for just a second here and take care of some business.
Okay.
Is this our next regular meeting, June 7th at 2? Does that meet your timeline for your project? Does that fit? I mean, what I'm saying.
Well, yeah. I mean,
have a vote.
we're just talking about 31 trees. So. No, I mean for the city. Oh, and the hillside. The hillside.
Well, and we'll put together good numbers on the hillside by then. And what I want to do is, as this kind of some people are filtering out, but while we got all these people here, I kind of want to set this date, you know, for the next meeting. And you know.
So Todd, when you talk about the next date, are you assuming that in between that time, Consumers is going to organize a meeting and present the overall project to us?
With your help, yes.
That would be the idea.
We'll do that, and we'll even get to be in touch.
And then you would
individual
consider at the
households.
next meeting granting the permit?
I think that gives them enough time, you know, to do what they need to do.
Okay. So let me be clear, or get some clarity. You're going to wait. You're going to hold on the 31 trees.
What I want to do is table the permit and vote and plan to vote on June 7th. That's my That's my proposed recommendation.
For the 31 trees in the city right away.
And it's gonna expand,
Yeah,
because
I know.
there's a couple trees that I found as I was going, that are city trees that are marked that should be, and then there's like they were saying, there's trees on the hill along parallel to Crest Drive that aren't counted. So there's gonna be a little bit more than 31 trees. Yeah.
I hear you say you're going to give them enough time to do their thing, but we're here as citizens of Kalamazoo. Where do we come into that statement? Because if you come back here on the 7th and things that are supposed to have taken place, or all the answers aren't presented, we don't want to have it arbitrary. We say, well, we said on the 7th we're going to make it so it's the 7th, and we're going to vote. If the 7th isn't right, we want to go on notice. Your young lady taking the minutes there, and we don't want to vote on the 7th. Because we want to be, understanding and happy of what's going to happen here too.
So hold on, no, wait, but we're not. Okay, this is not the final word. It's not the final permit. It's not the construction permit. It's not the lane closure permit. It is. That discussion. There's a timetable that we have to be sensitive to for the whole community. I mean, we can't have them reconstructing White's Road when it's wintertime and it gets icy, because we don't want them set up in the right of way. There's other, the right of way coordinators concerned about that, the engineers are concerned. So they have a timetable. Now, if they don't get that done by the next month and there's enough, we can do a lot of things. We can say we approve the permit for the trees pending whatever it is that we feel is undone as a committee. So we have authority to do a lot of things. But what we need to do is set a target date to process the permit. And we can say no. They're allowed 10 to 14 feet. So we have authority to do a lot of things. But what we don't want to do is put this so it's in the winter, or they have to do it next year.
So the burden is on consumers to work with the neighborhood prior to the meeting. That's the way it comes out.
And how will we know, I live on Crest Drive, and so you're talking about that hillside, then I live down from that hillside where you want a couple of trees. How will I find out about which trees? How will I find that out?
Yeah, we're going to have to figure out, because consumers, the markings are confusing, and we're going to have to talk to consumers about that, because there's still X's up there from trees that we didn't let them take down last time. Okay. But what I'm saying is, Sam hasn't painted any of those trees, but there's trees up there marked for removal from when Dave painted. So we're going to have to figure that out. But there will be some more communication from my office and some more communication from them. They have a requirement to give you 15 days of notice if they're going to cut trees on your right away adjacent to your property under the ordinance. So, and they're pretty reasonable about doing that, the communication piece. So.
That's what I was going to ask. But you mentioned 12 that have blue X on them. Do you wait? Do you have to talk to the homeowner? I don't have an X on mine, but you said there might be more. So how do you know? I had a flyer in my door. Or do you attempt to, do you send them a letter?
The flyer on your door, was it my flyer or
I had a City of Kalamazoo flyer, and then I had one that I think was from someone in the neighborhood.
See, I put them just under where people were under the wire. You may not have a tree that's affected, because I put them, people were under the wire even if they didn't have a tree, because I figured if they do your neighbor's tree, it affects you.
Oh, okay, because I had a tree, but there's not a US on it. So right now,
is it a flowering tree or?
Yeah, I don't know my trees, but it's a lower one probably.
Yeah, it's probably not. If your tree is suitable for the wires and allowed in the ordinance to be planted over the wires, they're not going to do it.
But the people, like you mentioned a couple of addresses, and you wonder what those people think. Like, will somebody reach out to those people? Because they may not.
Yeah, I will be.
Oh, you will? Okay.
And consumers already is. Consumers is notifying everybody. And that's their responsibility. I mean, I just tell you, before I recommend, okay, we approve this, those are the people I want to talk to.
Right.
Because some of those people, their trees are there for a reason. Because we try to make consumers cut all those trees down, and the people that are on Broadway, especially on that end from Winchell onto where the line goes into the backyards near Apple Lane, Those people wanted to keep their trees. They didn't care. They're like, yeah, I know my tree, but I love my tree. So those trees were there for a reason. Now, I talked to one lady, she wants her trees cut down now. I'm not sure about the other people, but I want to make sure what they think before. So that's what I'm asking. I was thinking we would be 2 weeks, but 2 weeks is fast, and a month seems like a long time. But is that enough time, or is that?
Yeah, I think June 7th is probably what we would need in order to be able to organize a meeting and come answer more of your questions in between. I will say we'll try our very best to answer all your questions and provide you the information that you need so you kind of know what's going on. But I would say I would like a decision on June 7th.
Right. That's
I mean, from our perspective.
Your meeting is the third Wednesday. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Can you get them on the agenda for your regular meeting?
For tomorrow?
We don't meet over the summer, unfortunately, and the May meeting is not viable to have a regular meeting.
Do you have like a board or?
We have a board that I can give you my contact information. We can reach out through our e-news or email to people.
That might be a
I
good
think
way
Gary's
to-
another person would be a great person to.
Through
So
your
can we-
emails, maybe we can
But
post
let's
an article
say
or
that-
something, submit it to you, send out.
Is 2 weeks enough time to get together the sort of aerial plans that they want to look at and, like, say, meet with the neighborhoods, invite them to your facility or this facility on Wednesday the 18th in the evening sometime?
Are you talking about having the neighborhood association meet here?
Here or at your place at Consumers? I mean, I can.
I would think, Bill, that we ought to find who the contact person is, the president of the association
For
or
all the
whoever,
different
and coordinate a
areas.
meeting, and we can have it at Consumers, or if you want to offer to use one of your facilities, we can do that too, but why don't, we'll get together with, probably you.
Yeah, and Gary, I would assume you're kind of the ringleader of your neighborhood area.
How that came about, but I guess.
Then we'll decide where, maybe you guys have a place that you meet regularly, I don't know, coffee shop.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
I think we need to have the neighborhood association. Gary is, I think I just heard him volunteer to be our spokesperson. And somebody from Crest Avenue, so that's a big issue. And that can be your contact. I just think set up a meeting and then maybe we can congeal the concerns and then figure out how to get the word out about the meeting.
Okay.
Like 2 weeks sounds
We need to get
good.
that.
If you'll get a hold of me, and we need someone from probably Crest, we need someone from the Whitcomb neighborhood, we will get the word out. And I've got my contact information for you.
Okay.
So, someone want to make a motion that we table this until our next meeting? Any more discussion from the committee? Anybody on the committee got specific questions for consumers that they want to know?
I guess I'd like to say a couple of things. One is, thank you all for coming today. This may be the start of everybody getting the information that they need. This is my first exposure to something like this with consumers. The one thing that I'm drawing from hearing your comments is literally every house is different. You all have different trees. So you all need to be proactive yourselves, and you need to get your neighbors in case they're a bit of a hermit type person and don't want to talk to people, to make decisions so they know what questions they need to ask of consumers. The second thing I'm hearing in my experience with clear cutting underneath high power lines is it's pretty destructive. And I think everybody here is thinking, my yard's a mess, my neighborhood's going to be a mess. So I think the reconstructive side of this, you need to be proactive on that as well. Working with the city for tree replacement, thinking about yourself. And if somebody mentioned they don't even know what tree they have planted, we have wonderful resources in the city to get that information. So we do it right this time. We plant trees under these power lines. They're beautiful, add to your property values and neighborhood values, and won't be a problem in the future.
Across from the straight behind the school.
All in favor?
I think we were talking about one.
Table it till next. I don't want to cut this dialogue over 3 quarters.
2 or 3. One, I have the easement on my copy.
Oh, I just wanted to confirm that consumers would have at this meeting before the June 7th meeting would have something about what's going to happen on this affected property? Or is that something that we need to have them come out to our home and talk to us about?
I think they're going to. I mean, I think they've been communicating they've been going door to door.
Yeah, but I have a phone during the day. So that's a problem. I mean, I'd have to have an appointment. And I'm one of those homeowners on Broadway, and I have numerous trees that will be affected in 2 lots. So I'd be very anxious to talk to someone about what trees are affected.
And so what I would say is Sam's number is right there, 207-8797.
207-8797?
That's who, and,
So my concern is that if you can't get it from the neighbors,
yeah.
We're not moving the pole. No, it's staying in the set. The pole's the same center.
Is there any more comments?
That's not going anywhere.
Poles will move, I will say, the poles will move slightly, because you can't put it in the exact same spot because the pole's there.
Right.
It has to hold the wires out, so when you put it up, one side will go in line with the wires.
but I'll have some idea of when
Doing a whole lot more on the Broadway area about this whole issue. So I want to make sure that it gets on the record that this was an issue presented to you.
Yeah, we're at the corner, across from the right behind the school.
Thanks, Scott.
We really appreciate all.
Yeah, I think
This is things we've been talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. You know, those Canadian hemlocks are not a big problem. But the thing that concerns me about your parcel is the big white ones.
Right. We can talk about city property.
The Canadian hemlocks, according to Todd, are on city cars.
Well, a landscaper, I don't know if it's that big. I can
Yeah, that's been changed. What we're doing, we looked at that. That was Bill kind of jumped in and let you know what it's going to be. That's going to ask for, I think, 30 feet.
How do you do it? Do you have like a barge?
You never cut most any tall green trees, and then 20 feet of danger trees. Actually, probably it goes from 75 feet to 50.
It's not enough for fur, not
we're looking at a lot of private.
Don't pull the wires.
Yeah.
If you put the tree first, we have a short fence. We didn't go for long, we have a short fence. There's trees.
I
And so now
can't
we'll
mix
have
up.
to go.
Yeah, no, we're can tell you.
Privacy.
I don't have any intention of doing it.
Well, okay, the subject said something different. Then he came back and said,
Yeah, so you guys, yeah,
But those get to 90 feet.
they can get big. They're a little bit overgrowing. I don't need to. I don't have any desire to do anything with them right now for this project. They could go up and become a problem. There's I think if I remember your property, you've got a Norway maple in your front yard. It's probably, I don't know.
There's two right
feedback, but that's probably about at 30 right now, so I'm not really worried about that. What I'm trying to what I'm trying to get is, directly to the adjacent line, 30 to 40 foot area, all those tree species gone, and then as you go back, you can plant more medium-sized growing trees. And that neighborhood, there's trees like some varieties in Norway, maybe only get about 30 to 35 feet. Nice shape. Yeah, there's some, there's English walnut, I think, and there's about 35 feet.
Other weeds have one of the fine
Yeah, all I can tell you about that is what our practices are is to not cut them. I don't want to cut that old stuff because it's actually, well, because if somebody plants a lilac bush around the pole, which they do to hide all the time, we have to cut it to get at the pole and replace it. So they lawyers put every species, we cover all these species. All I can tell you is what our standard practices are to avoid cutting stuff. I know it's scary. It's scary. It's the low growing stuff is for access issues. It's right on top of for safety, some sort of safety. Yeah. Well, when they do the title search, it would show up in the title search, so you would have the buyer have that as encumbrance. But the power line is there anyway. It's not going to be a surprise to a buyer that there's a power line in front of the property that has to be maintained. So the fact that there's an easement there that allows us to deal with threatening trees should not be a surprise or a hindrance to a buyer. My own opinion is if they like their house, they're going to like it for other reasons. You could be right. It depends on the buyer. Yeah, it depends.
I don't want to subcon. I know you're a busy man, but we need to have you come out and we need to talk about specifically what to do about our lot.
Yep. I haven't quite got there in my process. It's kind of a little bit. Actually, I was expecting this type of meeting to happen somehow or another. I didn't know about your neighborhood association. It's just I don't run across that on an individual basis. And this one, there's an association.
You learn from this.
The neighborhood association still have to issue individual lot. You gotta go out, we don't. I'm one on
Okay.
And again, I have a lot of tall trees too.
That's back. Okay. So one of these right-of-way guys has contacted you, or no?
Please contact me. I got a flyer.
Well, I'm suspecting if they haven't.
But I work. I'm not there during the day, so I have to make an appointment.
Yeah, they probably would leave a card in your door. If you haven't been contacted by one of these guys, it tells me that we might not need additional rights on the concert. We might have some rights. So if that's the case, that would
You have extra reasons I have.
Yeah. I'd have to talk to Bill and find out what we have a roofing person. They just haven't got around to contact.
Either way, I want someone to come out and talk to me.
Yep.
I'm never there if someone drops by.
If you wanted, I could run over there with you right now. We're down here today.
Got a major project this weekend?
I can.
You can go to their house right now.
We're right down.
Yeah. Okay. I'll head over. It's a nice day.
Well, I'll tell you what. After this event, let me tell you our address. No. I got to go back to the office. We have a major
major gathering event this weekend that we're planning. And I'm getting away from work. It's not easy. Good to see you guys. Okay, it's 2527 Broadway. The double lots where he has all the ornamentals in front of his ranch house.
You must be somewhere south of the school.
Yes. We're the last house on Broadway. There's a driveway after us. No, there's a driveway after us, but that house is actually on Junction. Ours is the last house on the east side of the street. And it has an extra lot with a chain link fence.
Can't quite picture it. It must be that there. It must have caught my eye.
Because I have a pine that goes up there, Bobby Lamb, L-A-M.
Bobby?
And
L-A-M?
L-A-M. It's a ranch house, sort of a tub-colored ranch house with 2 lots. It has an extra lot. I do a lot of gardening. Interesting. And so if you're going to lose now, I've got to go to the office, which is downtown. I may try to be home in another hour.
I'll probably be with them at least an hour.
Okay. Well, then you might stop by our house, and I'll try to get back there as soon as I can.
Okay. All right. I'll try and stop down and see you then, Bobby.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sam. I appreciate it.
Right down by the water. If I'd known you guys were doing it, I wouldn't have paid $2,500 that shit. This particular do you happen to know what